And we're going to start off the talk with marketing, which is probably the most important piece of the whole thing.
And it's probably not something that as a product designer or a creator you're thinking about right at the beginning, but actually when you're manufacturing it informs so many decisions that you need to make. So having a really strong idea about or thinking about marketing and your customer and so on at the beginning is crucial.
Yeah, actually when I work with, like, say, the industrial designers or a lot of the young designers, I actually tell them to focus on marketing first. And what I mean by that is to understand, like, what application they're going to try and do. Basically, I think, in general, before you start the design, you should think about marketing. So that's before the design. But now, since you've already finished the design, then it's like, okay, well, let's talk about marketing now. It's never too late to start. So,
Never too late.
So the first question is, like, who are your customers? And so this is an extremely important question. I think a lot of people don't really spend enough time on this. So, for example, like this camera. If I was going to design, like, this camera, then who would the customer be? And a lot of people would just say people that like photography. But I think that that's not a very good way to target people. And so, like, you want to say, like, are they male? Are they female? Are they older? Younger? What are they going to use the pictures for? Why are they taking the photographs? Are they going to put them in magazines? Are they going to put them on the web? Or do they just want to share pictures with their family? So those kind of things are very important because those will inform a lot of your decisions, and especially, like, how many you're going to make. And that's like a huge consideration when you're about to go into manufacturing.
And it also, even from a design perspective, if, for example, you're targeting older users, they might have less dexterity in being able to control some of the functions, so you might make the shoot button a little bit bigger. So if you have an idea of how or who's using it and some of the ways that they might, then that's informing your product as well as Akiva said, how many you need to do.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of backwards from the way most product designers work. So a lot of like, especially the really good product designers I meet are a bit like, oh, I just designed it because I could. But I think that's probably the wrong way to go. You should think about the users and the application first, and then start working on the design. The next big question is, how are you going to reach your audience? And so, are they on social media? Are they in discussion forums? Are they, like, at meetups like this? Like, at physical places? Are they at conferences? That's going to be a crucial thing too, because after you design your product and you get it manufactured, you're going to have to launch that product. And like this is where a lot of people kind of get hurt on Kickstarter, because they come up with a really cool design and they launch it to crickets. Like, you just hear crickets chirping. And that's because they haven't gone through the process of figuring out where their audience is and how to get in contact with them and how to let them know that this design is coming out.
And that comes back to, once you've manufactured the products, you've got to know that people know about them and that they can buy them.
So, next question, how will they buy your product? So this is going to inform... sorry. So this is going to inform a lot of decisions, and especially about your logistics. And so, do your customers purchase at retail stores, at shopping malls? Do they buy on Amazon? Are they? Do you have a lot of traffic to your website, and are they willing to buy from your website? Because those questions are going to have a big impact too. Like, if you're going...
You guys are stealing my presentation.
Oh, really?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, sorry.
So if you've got stuff to add.
No.
Well, actually, Alvin's really good at marketing, so I think so he'll have a lot of good stuff to say about all this.
But no, it's a very fair point, right? And it's like, how do you design for all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's also more at the fulfillment and the logistics end. So you've got your product sitting at the factory. Where do you get it to then get to your customers? So does it sit in your... room like our stuff
you,
does.
you have to know that, like, you have to go through and think about this first, because once your product is manufactured, you have about a week to get it out of the factory warehouse and out to where you need it to go. So this all needs to be kind of automatic. Like, you know, I have X amount of customers in Europe and I have X amount of customers in the US. Those are my main markets. So I have to figure out the logistics for that. Like, that's why you need to kind of understand this. So a lot of people think about manufacturing as just getting your products made. But if you fall over on the stuff that comes after that, then that's where you're going to run into huge issues.
And then that also affects your cost of goods and your margins as well. So we'll get into that a bit later as well.
And like another one is like, how many do you think you can sell? So this is always a difficult question. But if you get it wrong on both sides, you're going to lose money. So like if you don't make enough of them, you're going to lose customers because you're going to be backlogged, and it's going to take you a certain amount of time to make more, like to do another production run. And so like, you know, it's possible that you might miss the timing window. If you make too many of them, that's even more dangerous, because then if you can't sell them, then you have to somehow, like, you know, liquidate your stock. This is actually an important question to figure out, and like generally I would err on the side of being conservative. Like, so it's always better to sell out than it is to like make too much and just have a lot of your money tied up in inventory. And finally, what kind of margins can you expect? So a lot of people, when they if you do a product design and say, oh great, you know, like my cost is only $20. Well, the final like your materials cost might be $20, but then like say your distributor, like, because if your sales cost is $20 or your materials cost is $20, and then you go through distribution. The distribution, you pretty much double that cost, and then, or the distributors generally take actually about 50%. So 50% of that cost, and then the retail outlet will end up taking another 50%. And so the final cost will actually be about 4 to 5 times your materials cost. So you have to factor that in. So if you have if your product costs $20, and the final retail price at a store is going to be about $100.
And the other thing is, when you're designing the product, you might be able to prototype it, but can the factory and a kind of larger scale manufacturing do the same things that you can do? And so, for example, with the books, if you want rounded corners, it's done manually because the machines the binding machines and the cutting machines aren't set up for that. So you're adding to your cost. So even in the design, if you're planning to go to scale in the design phase of your product, understanding the processes that the factory does informs your design if you're looking at to try and keep your margins down, or absorb that cost, but then you're adding it on at some point.
Yeah, our friend is a designer, and then she put together like a really cute little book, and then and she wanted a little holder to attach, like so you could put your pens into it too. And so the cost of the book without the holder is about 80 cents per unit. And then, but if you add that little holder inside, which is basically a little strap, then the cost doubled. So it's about $1.50. And the reason why is because somebody has to manually insert that holder in. So every human touch that you have when you're manufacturing is going to have cost. And so like when you design, like every decision you make on your design will have consequences.
And so with things like shoes, it's very, very labour intensive. So that's why often the manufacturing moves to where there's lower cost labels, because at every point along the shoe thing it's done manually, not through an automated line.
Yeah, that's like Bangladesh. Yeah. So we'll get into that more later. But so like, what kind of margins can you expect? This is a very important question, because this will determine the feasibility of whether your product is financially sustainable.